The University of California, Riverside undergraduate admissions presents Blue, Gold, and Black podcast that is dedicated to amplifying Black voices at UCR. I'm Savannah Richardson from UCRiverside's Black and African American Recruitment Unit in undergraduate admissions, where our team motto is We Raise the Bar. For season 2, not only will we continue to explore the intersection of being Black and being a Highlander, but also take a dive into the past, present, and future, or another phrase, accomplished, achieve, and aspire, of current and Black Highlanders.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next episode on the Blue, Gold, and Black podcast presented to you by the University of California, Riverside. My name is Savannah Richardson, and I'm an admissions counselor here at UCR, specifically for our Black and African American recruitment team. Today, we're featuring on our next episode, Deidre Reyes. She's a two-time alum of UCRiverside, and she'll be presenting us about her educational journey through the University of California, Riverside for our Accomplished, Achieve, and Aspiring series. Deidre, please introduce yourself and let us know about your time here at UCR.
Yeah, thank you so much for that warm introduction, Savannah. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I'm not sure where you're joining us from, but as Savannah mentioned, my name is Deidre Reyes. I'm a double alum. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in public policy in 2021, and I recently graduated this spring, aka June, with my master's in public policy a couple months ago, and I'm really excited to be here with y'all today. So thank you so much.
Of course. We would love to know how you spent your time before UCR. How was it growing up here in Southern California? I know you did immigrate here as well.
Yes, definitely. So I'm originally from Central America, and the specific part of Central America that I'm from is Belize. I migrated to this country in the early 80s. And so prior to coming to UCR, I was just a young, presumably Black kid growing up in South Central Los Angeles, right? So no one knew that, we weren't really necessarily from here unless they started really talking to us. And then they would be like, hey, where are you from? You have an accent. And I'm like, oh, I'm from Belize. And then the next question is, where's Belize? And so it was always like, oh, it's in Central America, next to Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. It's really down there, right next to Mexico. So yeah, growing up in Central America, growing up in South Central, was an experience. Like all probably young kids of today, they don't know that they're poor. They don't know that they're living, not necessarily like everybody else. We just knew that, our parents or parent was doing, or guardian was doing the best they could with what they have to take care of us. And my childhood was a typical normal childhood. I'm the eldest of three. So I always had siblings to kind of like look after, being the eldest. But yeah, it was an experience. It was a journey. My mom was an educator in our country, and so she was really pivotal in helping us to learn how to perfect the American English, if you will, so that we can go to school. And so that was like my first introduction into, the world that is America, if you will, when I started second grade here in America.
Nice. And for viewers, you can actually access her article with UCRiverside News that actually highlights more about her background and her mother immigrating with her children from Belize. So with that being said, can you expand kind of more about your early experiences or challenges that might have shaped you and your choice to go into public policy?
Yeah, so as an immigrant and not, being from this country, we would hear things like, oh, we don't have our papers. And so essentially what that means is like we're undocumented, right? And or you don't have a green card, or you aren't a US citizen. And so what my mom started doing back then was she was working with Catholic Charities, which is a nonprofit organization, which really, I think to this day is still helping immigrants with this type of, work, helping them to get their immigration status up to par. And so my mom worked for many years with Catholic Charities, filling out paperwork. We went a lot of appointments. I saw this charity kind of giving to us in a way that was just, it was so authentic and so organic. Like the people were always really nice to us, incredibly helpful, and they really just wanted us to get what it is that we needed in order for us to be in this country and not necessarily be like bothered or have to worry about looking over our shoulders, right? And so watching my mom go through that experience for many, many years, because each of her children, each of us, all three of us had to go through the same experience. She had to go through the same experience. So this took a while. So we were at Catholic Charities quite a bit. And so looking at that kind of informed me as a child, like, hey, there are organizations out here that's, giving back, that's contributing to the betterment of other people, if you will. And I think that was kind of like my first introduction into being of service to others and giving back in an authentic and, like a really organic way.
Okay, great. And can you share how your connection to your Belizean culture has influenced your growth as an adult, or if it's played a role in shaping your education?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a very strict Belizean household. And what does that mean? That means like we were in America, but we really didn't participate in what was happening in America, right? My mom still cooked Belizean food. We still listened to our Belizean music. We still dance to our Belizean, the drums, right? I'm also a Garifuna woman. And so drumming is part of our culture. And so that type of music was really enriching to us. And so even though we were here in America, in our own home, it really felt like we were still in Belize because my mom made sure that we never lost that connection to our culture and our ethnicity. And that was important to me growing up because now I have the opportunity as a parent to pass those same values and those same things onto my kids as well. And so, so growing up, culture, the food, the music, everything was really Central American in our home. We were Central Americans 100% every day of the week.
Nice. So you did mention that Catholic Charities was one of the intersections that you had into wanting to come into public policy. So can you tell us how that fit into your journey of coming here to UCR and deciding to do public policy here with us?
Yes, absolutely. So I came to UCR on, there was a day called Discovery Day. And on that day, it was a Saturday morning, and all students who were thinking of transferring in can come and just kind of look at all the different types of majors. At that time, I had decided that I wanted to be a business admin major. And so I walked to the business administration table. I was like, hey, I'm here. And they were like, okay, good to meet you. And so, and so I was like, okay, so I'm currently in community college and I'd like to know what are my next steps to transferring into UCR. And so I had my transcripts with me. I was really proud of them and they looked at them and they're like, you haven't taken any math classes yet. I was like, no. They were like, well, business administration is predominantly math heavy. And you need to take at least maybe 6 or 7 more math classes before you can transfer in. And I was like, 6 or 7 math classes. I was like, oh no, you guys, this is no. I was like, she can't do that. Like, I am not a mathematician. Math is one of those things that I really struggled with. English came easy, maybe because my mom
don't we all? At least I know I do.
Was in teacher and she, English was like her strong suit with us, but math was not my thing. And so I was like, well, thank you so much. And I was really considering, I was like, well, you need to get your life together because business administration is clearly not it. If you have to take all these math classes to transfer in, you're never going to get here. So with my head hung low, I walked next. There was another booth next to the business admin booth. And it was the Graduate School of Education. I saw a couple of my friends there, said hi. And then next to them was the School of Public Policy. And so I was like, hey, what's public policy? What do y'all do? And they were like, oh, well, we go into the community and we try to find solutions. We try to solve problems. We work with the Riverside County of Education. We work within, the school districts. And essentially what we do is, we also do, lobbying, and we're an advocate, essentially, is what, how I translate all that. And I was like, wait a minute, I think you guys are my people. I don't think those people to Bustan are my people. And they were like, well, why don't you join us for lunch? We're going to have lunch with the dean. The current dean at that time, this was in 2018, it was Dean Dialalicar, and he was the dean. They're like, we're going to have lunch with him. Why don't you join us? And then, he'll be able to talk more about public policy. And then you can really see if this is your jam, right? So I joined the two students, Jose and Nilofar, Jose and Nilofar were at the booth. And I joined them along with about 8 or 9 other students to have a private luncheon with the dean. And during that lunch, we talked about the work that we were currently doing in the community. I was working at that time at my community college, working on the Food for Thought board. And basically what that means is that we were feeding students every month. I would help run the food pantry, set up the food pantry, and students would come in and they would get in line, and we would make sure that they had what they needed to get them through the month, right? And he was like, yeah, that type of work is essentially what you do within public policy. You're advocating for other people. You're making sure that, those who don't have get. And I was like, maybe this is my jam. I said, I tell you what, Dean, I said, I have about another year or so to go, but I think I found my people, and I think you guys are it. He was like, we'd love to have you join us. Why don't you apply? Let's see what happens. A year later, I applied and I started my UCR journey in the fall, September of 2019. And that's when I knew that public policy was my jam.
Awesome. Thank you for highlighting one of our biggest events that we do hold here on our campus, which is Discover Day. That's our fall open house, which, like you mentioned, we do have our colleges out there on the field representing what they do here on campus. So the fact that you had the experience to talk to the business school, you had the chance to talk to public policy, see where you were, and now where you're going. And here at UCR, we even like to nurture these relationships so you feel like this is a place where you can continue to see yourself to do your undergrad and then hopefully move on to your master's. So that's great that you had that experience. You did also mention that you were a community college student. You were transferring. Something that I also did notice reviewing your article is that you're what's known as a non-traditional student here in the UC system. So anybody that's not familiar with the non-traditional student, those are students that are 40 up. So considering that you're one of those students, how do you feel about that title? Do you think that's an accurate title? And how do you feel like you were able to adjust here at UCR being a non-traditional student?
Right. That's a really great question. So coming into college, big college is what I called UCR, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to big college now, y'all. And so starting off at big college, I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many young people here. But I never felt as if I didn't fit in, but I knew, because I was a non-traditional student, woman of a certain age, and because I was a student parent, I knew that I wasn't going to have the 20-something-year-old experience, right? I knew that I wouldn't be going to frat parties. I knew that I wouldn't be going to concerts on the lawn. I knew those things going in. And so what I did specifically was, first of all, I had that reality already set up, right? I had that framework, like, you are going to have a different experience because you're twice these students' age who are currently here now, maybe some of them 3 times their age, right? I was in my 40s then, still in my 40s, well, late 40s now. And so I knew that my experience was going to be different. And so what I did for myself was, I said, okay, what type of experience do you want? Because 1, you are never coming back here to do this again. 2, how lucky are you to have been accepted into UCR, right? The one school you wanted to go to. You're finally here. What are you going to do to make this experience? What are you going to do to make the most of this experience? And so I said, I want to meet everybody. I want to talk to everybody. I want to get to know everybody. Like, my personality is really gregarious. Like, I'm a people person and I love talking. And so I literally just started talking to people on campus. And started networking and started, getting involved in some of the pre-transfer activities. To that point, one of the activities that was offered to students who were transferring in was a summer transition program. The summer transition program meant you would give up your summer, 6 weeks of it, and from, I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we were in class at UCR. And what we were learning during that time was about the culture at UCR. This is prior to transferring in, or sorry, prior to starting in the fall. And so the summer transition program, which was offered by the ARC, was really, really incredible for me because they had guest speakers come in, right? We had former GSOE Dean Louis Rodriguez. He came in and spoke to us about his experience. We also had someone from financial aid come in and talk to us about what our packages would look like, right? We took a tour of the campus. We learned the campus, we learned the culture. And that for me was like, oh my God, I'm so excited, because it made sure, for me, it just kind of like made me more ready and more excited for the fall to start, because I kind of knew the lay of the land, if you will. And so having that pre entry experience was really pivotal. Additionally, that same summer, which is the summer of 2019, I also learned about ASUCR. And ASUCR at the time, they were putting together a conference. They were looking for delegates to go to on a retreat, and the retreat was a 3-day weekend. We were going to go to Pasadena, stay at a hotel, and we were going to really come together, all 9 UCs come together and decide what are the priorities for us as students moving forward. And I thought, here's your chance to get involved, and here's your chance to learn more about the space that you're about to enter into. And so that same summer, I became a delegate. And I joined ASUCR, and I learned about the culture. I learned, how to get involved more. And that really worked seamlessly for me as a public policy major. And so that was really some of the early experiences that I took advantage of.
That is so great to hear. You were advocating as a student in ASUCR. You started early. You said you were getting involved a lot during your first years in undergrad. Can you let us know some of the clubs or spaces that you frequented that made you feel at home here, or made you feel like you could advocate as a student and be involved?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the first things that I noticed when I transferred into UCR was, well, there were a couple of things that I noticed. One, the system was moving a lot faster than me, right? Coming from community college, we're working with 18-week semesters, and UCR was a 10-week quarter system. So talk about whiplash. I was like, whoa, what just happened? They're like, the quarter just ended. I was like, it did? I'm still trying to catch my breath. I'm still holding on to life. They were like, the next quarter is starting in a week. I was like, oh my, I'm not ready. She's not ready for this. But to your point, or to your question, as a student parent, I learned about our kids. And our kids was one of the first connections one of the first orgs that I connected with, because our kids essentially is for, it's a club for student parents like myself. And so that allowed me to transition and be able to talk to other parents like, hey, how are you guys handling your CalWorks paperwork? How are you handling your welfare to work paperwork? How are you guys getting your books taken care of? Because as a CalWorks and a welfare to work student, which I was at the time, there are a few things that's afforded to us, but UCR didn't have those structures in place. And so I relied on other students in our kids to help me navigate that space. Additionally, I'm also a student who has a disability. I have invisible disabilities. Mine is more, cognitive processing, anxiety, depression occasionally, right? I'll just, put it all out there. And so being diagnosed with a disability and coming from community college, when I was diagnosed in 2017, I knew that in order for me to be a successful student, there were things I needed to put in place. And so I met with my student disability, I met with the Student Disability Resource Center. I met with my counselor. She set me up in terms of like, okay, so this is what each quarter is going to look like for you. When you have a test or a midterm or a final, we have spaces for you to come into to be able to take these, tests, midterms, and finals privately so that you don't feel anxious, so that you aren't sitting with 200-300 students and are unable to complete your task because of your anxiety. And so that for me was really important as an undergrad student, because I really was super anxious my first quarter. Again, it was whiplash. I didn't know what was happening. Additionally, again, connecting with students in ASUCR. And so those are my three main introductory, kind of spaces, if you will, or orgs into the UCR's, community as a student parent.
Awesome. And then can you also tell us what led into your journey of deciding to go into the School of Public Policy to go ahead and pursue your master's with us?
Yeah, so after right toward the end of my undergraduate degree, my kids and I were experiencing homelessness, and we were living in a motel at the time. And I was just trying to graduate. I was like, if I could just get this bachelor's degree, then I'm out. And so I had a conversation with our Dean Deolalekar at the time, and I told him, what I was experiencing. And he was like, well, have you considered, maybe pursuing your M.P.P? And I was like, in this particular space right now, no, I don't even see a way out of this impoverished position that I'm in right now. So thinking of graduate school is not something I'm thinking about. And he was like, well, kind of think about it a little bit, because we really think that you as a student, with the breadth of work that you've done as an undergrad, would really lend itself nicely to our M.P.P program. And I was like, Dean Deolalekar, like, I don't think so. Like, I need to work. I need to put food on the table for my kids. Like, I have immediate needs that I need to take care of. And then he had mentioned to me that in graduate school that you could work as a TA. And so I was like, okay, so that's a guaranteed job. And then he also mentioned, that there are other opportunities such as GSRs, which is a graduate student research opportunities and positions that would come up. He mentioned that there were fellowships involved within the program in it of itself. And I was like, maybe I could go further. And so he was like, yes, you will go further. So essentially I was voluntold by the dean that I needed to do the M.P.P program because it was a program designed for students like myself. And so that's how I found my way in the M.P.P program.
Awesome. Well, while we're still on your undergraduate career, I would just like to talk about how a lot of our students do come here anticipating getting a degree, but have a lot of challenges and hurdles in place, like homelessness and food insecurity. So your path to higher education has been marked by a lot of determination and resilience, I must say. But despite facing these challenges such as food and housing insecurity, can you share with us how this has been an experience that has shaped your academic journey?
Yes, absolutely. And so, going back to what I wanted out of this experience holistically, I didn't anticipate becoming homeless. I didn't anticipate all the challenges and adversities that would, come my way. But I knew that I was home. UCR for me was always a space of comfort. From the first day I stepped foot on campus, I just felt like I was enveloped in this warm hug from everybody. Everyone was so warm and so welcoming and loving. And that was my experience from inception to the end. I never had a bad experience with anyone on staff or faculty or anything on campus, right? Shaping my undergraduate journey, or shaping my journey at UCR, when my children and I were experiencing, the things that we were experiencing, like homelessness and food insecurity, UCR's basic needs jumped in and was like, how can we help? What do you need? The School of Public Policy at the time was like, how can we help? What do you need? ASP, I spoke with Dr. Jamal Myrick, the ASP director, during that period, and everyone just really rallied around my children and I to make sure that we, even though we had fallen, they're like, we are going to make sure you do not hit the ground. And
Right.
so they provided like a safe space for us and a safe place for us to land. And so, again, I hold UCR incredibly dearly to my heart, because without UCR, the team rallying around us, the warmth that I've experienced since day one, I wouldn't be the success I am today.
I would just like to mention during the time in your undergrad here, you did a lot of advocacy, not only for yourself, but for others. And can you share how people can go about advocating for themselves or even for others?
Yes, definitely. And so for others, for me, getting into ASUCR, UCR has over 400 clubs and orgs. So if you're a student and you're passionate about something, something is like you're feeling fired up about a problem, some type of systemic issue, anything that really just kind of like makes you not want to go to sleep at night, there's a solution for that problem, right? And there's an org or club on campus that can help you kind of work within that space that or work with those individuals who you want to help out, who are also facing those same types of challenges or adversity. And so for me, that space was ASUCR. That allowed me to go to the state capitol and lobby. I did that a couple times. This was prior to the pandemic, of course, like literally just before the pandemic hit. We went to the state capitol and we lobbied for, more money for students, who are marginalized and students who are often forgotten about. And that experience for me was just like really like, it solidified for me, like you are in the right place at the right time, because you are doing some really good work. And that work for me was really rewarding. And I felt as if I had felt really good to advocate for all UC students, because it was a UC wide initiative that we were advocating for.
Awesome. That's great to hear you had the last chance to go to DC. But just so you all know, we have picked back up the UCDC program. So if that is something that you all are interested in, please consider applying when you do come to University of California, Riverside. So now that we've talked about your educational journey in undergrad here, I would love to know, did you participate in the Black grad or maybe even the Raza grad?
I did both. So my identities are I'm Central American and I look African American. So okay, let's go to Black grad. Because my last name is Reyes, I was like, okay, let's go to Raza grad. And so
Right.
I
Intersections right there.
yes, exactly. And so I had the best time in both of those spaces, always felt welcomed, open door policy, no matter what color you are, what race you are, what ethnicity you identify as. So yes, to your question, I did participate both in Raza grad and Black grad.
Awesome. And then can you highlight the extensive work that the dean was talking about that you did in undergrad, and then let us know what transitioned over into your M.P.P program and some of the work that you did there?
Yes, absolutely. In addition to working with UCR, my involvement as an undergrad, as I'd mentioned earlier, I was a delegate at the UCSA Student Organizing Summit, both in 2019 and 2020. I also, was part of UCR's Healthy Campus, Healthy Eating and Nutrition Subcommittee. I was also a UCR Honor Scholar, so that was another tasks, because there were additional classes as an honor student that you have to take as well. And there's a capstone.
What was your capstone project? Because be warned, everybody, if you are a part of the honors program, you do have to do a capstone project.
Yes. So my capstone project was working specifically, learning how many UC students are homeless and how many UC students, this was prior to me being homeless, by the way. So it was kind of like, I don't know what the word is when you kind of like
precursor, maybe.
Hmm?
A precursor, maybe.
Yes. And so specifically, it was like, how many students are homeless? How many UC students are experiencing food insecurity? And I learned that number back then was 60%. And so my
UCR
capstone,
students.
yeah, or UC students,
Okay.
yes, overall. And so my capstone project was titled An Evaluation of Homelessness Affecting College Students.
Wow.
And that was a huge undertaking, because you can't graduate until you finish that capstone project.
Thank you for letting them know.
Yes, until you finish that project, you will stay in undergrad.
And were you published for the research that you did with that?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Were you published for the research that you did?
Yeah, so the research can be found on UCR's honors website under e-scholarship. If you type in Deidre Reyes, you see my entire capstone project there.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you so much. So in addition to being, an honor student, I was also part of, oh God, there's so much that I did. I'm going up to my list now, 1 second. I was part of the ASUCR City Relations Committee. I was part of the UCR Votes student campaign. There's a video on YouTube that you can watch. What we were doing at that time was we were trying to get more younger UC students to get involved with voting, right? Because we are the voice for tomorrow. If we want to see changes, we have to make those changes now, because we are the next generation. The baby boomers are retired and they're chilling in their retirement homes. So whatever changes that we want to make or we want to see, it's up to us to make those changes. And so we were really, working on initiatives to get students involved in voting, and what that looked like. And so that campaign was really fun for me. I was also part of the Student Disability Union. I was a recruitment officer, recruiting students to really take a look at themselves and say, you know what? I identify as a disabled student, or I, am an advocate for disabled students. And how can we ramp up or beef up our numbers to get more students involved and, disability resources and disability, get more information out there for our disabled students, to let them know that they weren't by themselves. And students who look like me are disabled, right? I don't have a visible disability, but I am a disabled student. And if I'm talking about it, and this is a real thing for me, and it's a real thing for you, but you're kind of maybe on the fence or maybe ashamed about it, I wanted people to know what it looked like, right? As a student, as a student parent, I'm here representing as a disabled student, and come join me, right? Let's get on board, and let's kind of advocate to make sure that other students feel safe and comfortable in these spaces. And so that was a really great collaboration, working with the SDRC on that campaign. Additionally, during my undergrad, I also worked as a research assistant. That was really great experience, because that experience, that 8-month experience as a research assistant, working on an amazing project with Dr. Bruce Link and Dr. Juanita Garcia, allowed me to, when I transitioned into grad school, allowed me to be able to leverage that experience and become a research assistant in grad school. So those little tiny nuggets of experience that you get, and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, it will come in handy later. It definitely comes in handy.
Well, I don't know about our viewers, but I heard a long list that didn't even sound finished. So one thing that came to mind to me was, while you're doing all these amazing accomplishments, how are you able to manage your time with being a student, being a parent, and just being an individual, especially having, this invisible disability that you said a lot of people don't realize you have, but you essentially do.
Right. So what that looked like, unfortunately, it looked like 90% of my time went into school and 10% was the balance, right? It was like, hey kids, I'm on a homework break. Do y'all want to play? Hey kids, I'm on a homework break. Y'all want to go to the park? So unfortunately, my kids, did kind of take a backseat to my education. But I did explain to them, like, look, mom is working really hard to get her degree. because us living in poverty, being in poverty, visiting food banks is going to be a thing of the past for us. We will still do the work and volunteer in these spaces, but us being participants in these spaces will change after I get my degrees. And they're like, okay. And so they were really patient with me, and they understood every step of the way, like, I'm doing this for us, right? And so I'm not doing this to hurt you, and I'm not taking this much time away from you because I don't love you, but this is because I love you and I want to pull us out of poverty. And so they were really understanding. So yes, 90% of my time was really toward the 99 orgs and clubs that I was involved in, and just making sure that, I maintained a really strong GPA, which I was able to graduate with a 3.6, and I was able to graduate cum laude. I was able to graduate with the distinction of being a UCR honors grad, because I did get that capstone project done or completed. And so it took a lot away from me personally, and it wasn't something that I was upset about, because my friends would be like, hey, so there's this party, are you in or out? I'm out. Hey, there's this event, are you in or out? I'm out. And so I declined a lot of invitations because I wanted to invest that time, that energy, and those hours into me. And so that I was really, really purposeful with saying no, and really intentional with making sure that I was selfish, because I was more important than a pool party, a mixer, a cookout, or any of those other things that were going on, right? And I know some students, often think like, well, what about having fun in college? Your college experience is going to be shaped by the choices that you make.
Ooh,
So
wow.
if you want to graduate with straight A's, you've got to put the time in and you've got to put the work in. Now, some students coming in are like, I don't need to put, 90% of me into this project or into any project, because I'm innately just, that gifted and things just come quick to me. Bravo to you. I'm not one of those students. Again, I'm disabled. So I need to read things 3 or 4 times before I get it. I need to, have a conversation with my professor, like, hey, so I read this text, but I don't understand this text. Can you please, elaborate on this text a little bit more for me so that I can get it? Because sometimes I need to hear it and sometimes I need to see it. And so just a combination of both of those things and building those relationships with my professor was really pivotal and key to my success within, getting through UCR successfully.
You are exactly right. Being here in college, it definitely shows you have to be self-aware and understand that you might have a different learning style and things may change as you are coming here to the UC, but these are something that you have to be realistic with, because this is reality. So thank you for sharing that. And I also want to congratulate you, Deidre. You just graduated from UCRiverside's Master of Public Policy programs. And not only that, but you just finished up your fellowship. So we would love to know, can you share some reflections about how your fellowship at the United Domestic Workers of America has impacted your understanding of labor activism and how it's relevant in today's context?
Yeah, absolutely. So this summer, I was fortunate enough to participate in UCR's inaugural UC Summer Fellowship, or UC Labor Summer Fellowship. And so I was a fellow who worked at UDW 3930 locally here in Riverside. So the labor movement is really strong right now. We see, the actors on strike. We see teachers on strike. My mom was I spoke to my mom yesterday. She was like, my trash didn't get taken out because, the trash workers are on strike. I mean, we're experiencing a huge uproar in activism and laborers saying no more, right? And so working at UDW for me this summer, even though I wasn't on the ground with a picket sign, I was working behind the scenes as a market research analyst. And what I was analyzing was specifically the demographic whom they represent, which is in-home support care workers. And that work for me was really, really meaningful, because the research that I was able to do for them, they can take that information and they can take that to the state of California, or they can apply that towards grants and say, here are the numbers. Here's what here's what, statistically we're seeing within the space. We have X amount of IHSS workers. There are X amount of people or individuals who are 18 or over who are disabled. And, there's a need in this space. And so that work for me, again, was really meaningful. And I had a really great time, doing the work, because I knew that even though, again, I wasn't on the ground holding a picket sign, participating, actually in the labor movement, I was still in the labor movement. And so it was really rewarding.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience about the fellowship that you just worked with. With your recent graduation and your experience with the fellowship, do you have any aspirations or specific plans to further advocacy or engagement in labor-related issues?
Yes, that's a really great question. Again, the labor movement is strong, it's going. And again, folks are saying no more, pay us a living wage or we're out of here, right? As was true for UAW when all 48,000, when all 9 UCs went on strike in November, right? 48,000 students, student workers, TAs, GSAs were like, no more, pay us a living wage. We need to, be able to feed our families. We need to be able to pay our rent. And the cost of living has gone up. I was at the grocery store a couple of days ago and I literally bought 10 items. I had 2 bags of groceries and I spent $100. And I came home and I was scratching my head and I was like, what did I buy besides Gatorade and bacon?
I know many of us are having that dilemma these days. Like, where did our money go in these 2 little bags?
At the grocery store. So to that point, I believe that advocacy is strong, it's ongoing, and it's going to really be part of the fabric of, of California, part of the fabric of America, right? Because there will always be someone that's not being paid a living wage. And so I am currently applying to positions within, various unions, both here in Southern and Northern California. And so I'm excited about what my next steps are. I know that whatever it is that I do next with, my master's in public policy degree or within the space of labor and advocacy, I know that because I'm rooted and grounded with being of service to others and helping other people, making sure that our marginalized communities, have the needs, have their needs met, and making sure that, students like us don't go hungry, making sure that students like us have, adequate housing. I know that I will always be doing this type of work. And so I'm excited about what's next. And, I'm grateful to UCR for the educational experience that that I received from this amazing institution. And yeah, it's exciting.
So, as I mentioned earlier about your UC Riverside news article, I did read that you were considering running for Riverside City Council. Is that something that we're still considering? Because I would love to know what motivates you to take on leadership and making a difference in your community.
So I'll answer the question backwards. So taking on leadership and making a difference in my community, I've always known that if you want to see the change or any change, you have to represent that change. And you have to walk that change and talk that change. And you literally have to kind of ingratiate, is that the word? You have to put yourself in the center of what that problem is.
Yes.
And more importantly, if you have experience, right, with those issues, then that's something that's always going to be burning inside of you because you want to solve that problem. And so for me, solving problems, not from a mathematical perspective, but from a people perspective is something that I'm really passionate about. Making sure that there's, justice and making sure that people get the things that they need, and making sure that, even though there's going to be suffering in the world, we don't all have to suffer in the same way, right? I don't have a lot, but whatever it is, whatever little it is that I do have, I don't mind sharing it because I know that someone is worse off than me, And so being in the space of advocacy and giving back and doing doing things for other people. It's just something that's innately inside of me. And I think that's something I adopted from my mom. My mom is a giver. And so I became a giver. My mom is a doer. So I became a doer. And watching her give and do and just always be there for other people really informed me as a, as a young girl that that's really what I wanted to do when I grew up. And to the running for office part, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I'm there yet. Eventually, I think I won't take it off the table for now, but
Please don't.
It's not on the table just yet. It is something I'm definitely still considering for sure. Because I don't see me in those spaces, right? I don't see us in those spaces. And so it's important to me in order for me to continue, to say to, my daughters, like, hey, you can be or you can do. And they're like, well, we don't see us in that space. And so seeing someone that looks like me, seeing an immigrant, who went through similar experiences like myself in those spaces, I think that would really lend itself nicely to the future students, future advocates, and, students who say, who may think like, I really want to run for office, but I don't see me in that space. And so for me, I want to be a representation of what that looks like. And so the question is, yes, eventually I most certainly will do that, but not at this particular juncture.
Well, I'm glad we were able to use this platform to get your name out there. So the next time you guys hear Deidre Reyes, make sure you vote for her. Well, it's amazing to see that you saw a role model in your mother and you're trying to be a role model for your children and for everyone out here looking for an advocate. So, with your story, it involves such a strong connection to your family and particularly your mother. So, I would just love to know, how has your relationship with your mother evolved over the years, and does it influence your determination and your accomplishments?
Yes, absolutely. So, like myself, my mom was a single parent. She came to America with just, her kids. And, I watched her every single day, rain, snow. It doesn't snow in California, but even if it was a good day, a bad day, whatever was happening within California, within South Central, my mother woke up every single day and went to work. There wasn't a day that my mother was like, I don't feel good, I'm going to lay on the couch. My mother went to work every single day, no matter how she felt. And that for me was just like, wow, I saw just a warrior queen in her. Like, I saw strength, I saw resilience, I saw determination, and I adopted all of those things without even knowing it, without even thinking about it. I just was watching and paying attention to how strong she was. And as a student parent myself, I am that strong. I've inherited, that determination and that stick-to-itiveness from my mom. And my mom is a hero to me. And again, coming to America with 3 children on her own and making it successfully, right? And she's recently retired. She was actually a huge part of my decision to join the labor movement as well. I know we hadn't talked about it, but my mom worked for SEIU Local 721 for over 20 years. And so she recently retired from there. And so watching her do that work in that space was also incredibly rewarding and encouraging for me to do the work that I'm doing now. And yeah, my mom is everything. She is a rock star, and she's always just been, someone that I've looked up to, and someone that I admire, and I love her to the moon and back.
Aw, that is so lovely. You can definitely tell you have adopted and inherited a lot of her qualities for sure. I would like to say throughout this time talking with you, it doesn't really seem like you've encountered imposter syndrome, quite honestly. I would like to know, did you ever? And if you didn't, or if you did, how did you combat that? Or what would you tell people that are facing something like imposter syndrome?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a great question. So imposter syndrome is definitely real. And my first quarter in the fall of 2019, I did experience that again, I'm transferring in from the UC system. I'm transferring in from the community college system, 18 weeks, to the UC system, which is 10 weeks, right? So it's a quarter system versus the semester system. So I come in, and one of the classes that I was enrolled in was statistics. And I failed statistics. And when I tell you, coming in with a 3.8 GPA as an honor student and to fail a class, I was done. I was like, I'm out. Where's the exit sign? And so, yeah, I was so bummed out. I felt like a failure in that moment. And I was like, why are you even here? Like, you are not in the right space at the right time. Like, this is not for you. You thought big college was your thing, but it's not your thing because you just failed a class. And so I remember specifically going and talking with my honors advisor, Dennis McIver. And I was like, I'm done. I'm tapping out. He was like, what do you mean you tapping out? I was like, I didn't do well in statistics. I'm a failure. I got a B in my second class, and I don't even know how I did in the third class. I was like, I'm just done. And he was like, well, let's go take a walk. And so Dennis, like, literally we walked around the whole campus, and he was like, let's talk about it. You still have a 3.0 GPA. That's all we require for you to stay in honors. And this was your first quarter. Most students who transfer in have a really rough first quarter, and you did. But let's not let that be the determining factor as to whether or not you continue on this trajectory or completely throw in the towel. And when I tell you, Dennis literally walked me off the ledge because I was on the ledge and about to jump off and just throw in the towel, because I really felt like I felt like UCR had admitted the wrong student. I felt like an imposter in that moment. And with his guidance, with his advice, I buckled down and I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a go, and we're going to try it again. And I worked harder, right? And I kept trying, and by George, I finished. And I was like,
yes, you did.
I did that. Okay. So yes, I did experience that. Absolutely.
Awesome. That's great. I really do miss Dennis. Shout out to Dennis if you're watching this. UCR has a lot of gems in the faculty and staff department here, which I know you heard Deidre elaborate a lot is the reason why she wanted to come here to UCR, is because certain faculty were very friendly, inviting, and actually willing to listen to her and help provide her with resources to make sure she succeeds. I also was an alumni here at UCR and experienced the same thing. And that's one of the reasons why I actually wanted to come back to work here, is because of the friendly and essentially like family environment here on our campus. So my last question for you, Deidre, is there any advice you would like to leave any of our students with trying to pursue higher education here at the University of California, Riverside?
Yes, that is a really great question. So I would encourage any incoming students to get involved in what's happening on campus, meaning like of the 400 plus clubs and orgs, join one, or even walk into those spaces. The clubs and orgs, most of them are housed in what's called Costo Hall, and that's where you'll find your ASP, African Students Program, CSP, your Chicano Students Program, and any other ethnicities program in Costo Hall. It's right next to the hub, which is the Highlander Union building. And so get involved. Think of UCR, if you will, as a buffet. And you're at the buffet and you see this amazing spread. If you decide that of all this amazing food that's on the buffet table, that you're going to get one thing, then that one thing, that choice that you've made to just get one thing, that one thing is going to define your experience at UCR. So I would encourage you to not pick up one thing at the buffet table, aka school. Pick up many things. Try something you've never tried before, because like I mentioned earlier, this is a once in a lifetime experience. You will never come back to get this experience again. Now, if you come back a few years later, it's not going to be the same 2023 or 2024 experience. It's going to be a different experience. So this is your one shot to do something amazing, to do something great, to make this experience your own and get everything that you can out of it. Juice this experience. We have lots of oranges on campus. Literally, go pick an orange and juice it. Juice this process and get as much juice as you can out of it, because that is what's going to sustain you. That is what's going to fill you up. And that is what's going to allow you to get to the next steps in your journey, be it educational, be it professional, whatever it is that your next steps are. UCR is an amazing buffet of educational opportunities. And I would encourage you to eat everything on the plate. Eat everything on that buffet table and just maximize every opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, y'all heard it here first. UCRiverside is a place you come to nourish yourself and fill your cup. It sounds like we won't disappoint. I want to thank you so much, Deidre, for taking the time out to share your background, your experience here at the university, and how it's shaped you. Can I just say you are making a huge impact, and we really appreciate it. And honestly, I look forward to see what more you achieve.
Oh, thank you so much, Savannah. I really am grateful for this space. I'm grateful for you, grateful for your time. And again, just grateful for all the amazing folks I get to meet as a result of, being a UCR alum like yourself, and just, being able to talk to hopefully future students. And so thank you for this space, and thank you for this opportunity, and just, thank you for your interest in me as a student.
Of course, and Deidre Reyes is also a part of our Black Alumni Association here at the University of California, Riverside. I am as well, and they do a lot of outreach here on our campus when meeting prospective students. So if you ever see one of us on campus, please do not feel shy to say hi. I'm sure, right, Deidre? Because we would love to learn more about you and see what we can do to help you make an informed decision on where you would like to spend your educational journey. So thank you again for joining us for the Blue, Gold, and Black podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Thank you for joining us on Blue, Gold, and Black podcast. This was produced by Black and African American Recruitment BAR team of undergraduate admissions at the University of California, Riverside. If you'd like to learn more about attending University of California, Riverside, the website is admissions.ucr.edu. The BAR team also has a website, admissions.ucr.edu/bar, where you can view our upcoming events and programs for prospective students. Also, contact us regarding supporting student success and building community at UCR. The description box below has useful links and resources linked to today's conversation. Support this podcast if you enjoyed it by liking, subscribing, and sharing, and also checking out our other episodes as well. I hope to see you on our side.